planet Earth. It feels like we already know everything about it. But in this video, you'll hear facts that make even Ridley Scott star engineers look like kids playing in a sandbox. Let's begin. In Earth's biochemistry, there is one chemical element that plays a strangely important role, despite the fact that there is almost none of it on our planet. That element is molybdenum. The most plausible explanation is unsettling. Life may have originally emerged on another planet, a world where molybdenum was far more abundant than it is on Earth. Here on our planet, molybdenum is extremely rare, yet it plays a critical role in the chemistry of life. In other words, life on Earth depends on an element that barely exists here. In addition to this, an American scientist named Schroeder, as a result of many years of research, identified an entire group of chemical elements that are also extremely scarce on Earth. What makes this especially unusual is that even a relatively large increase in their concentration in soil does not harm plants, as would normally be expected, but instead actually extends their lifespan. These elements include nickel, manganese, chromium, vanadium, and molybdenum. It should also be added that the human body contains a wide variety of chemical elements, representing almost the entire periodic table. However, only 14 of them are considered biologically essential. Among these are the same elements already mentioned: nickel, manganese, chromium, vanadium, and molybdenum, as well as cobalt, selenium, and fluorine. Such a discrepancy between the chemical composition of the planet itself and the very different distribution and set of elements required for the existence of life on it appears difficult to explain. But if we accept the hypothesis that all life on Earth has an extraterrestrial origin, then everything begins to fall into place. Some terrestrial plants absorb solar energy most efficiently in a different part of the spectrum than the one in which the sun emits most strongly. They behave as if they had gone through their evolutionary development on planets orbiting another star, one whose peak radiation is shifted toward higher frequencies, corresponding, for example, to Sirius. According to these graphical data, the ancestral home of Earth's plants should be located near a star that, on the Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, belongs to the class of bright white subdwarfs, whereas the Sun belongs to the class of yellow stars. This may suggest that certain species of plants and animals were adapted to the conditions of Earth's climatic zones, while originating on other planets. Some food crops have no wild ancestors. Corn is one such example. It cannot reproduce on its own or return to a wild state. For its reproduction, a rational being is required. According to ancient myths, long ago this grain was given to humanity by beings who descended from the sky, entities that people regarded as gods. Here is what George Wells Beadle, an American geneticist and Nobel Prize laureate in physiology or medicine in 1958, said: "Corn contains a strange genetic cocktail, and it is impossible to find a precise ancestral form of this plant on planet Earth." Wheat presents an equally strange picture. The Soviet scientist Nikolai Vavilov, as a result of a global study of different wheat species, identified 3 completely independent centers of origin for this crop. Syria and Palestine turned out to be the homeland of wild wheat and einkorn wheat. Abyssinia, or Ethiopia, was identified as the homeland of durum wheat, and the foothills of the Himalayas emerged as the center of origin for soft wheat varieties. As Vavilov wrote in his work, several remarks on the problem of the origin of wheat. One fact is particularly significant. In Abyssinia, where the greatest primary diversity of 28 chromosome cultivated wheat is concentrated, all major wild relatives of wheat are completely absent. This fact makes it necessary to revise our understanding of the process by which cultivated plants originated. At the same time, the differences between wheat species are enormous. Einkorn wheat has 14 chromosomes. Wild and durum wheat have 28 chromosomes. Soft wheat varieties possess 42 chromosomes. Doubling and tripling the chromosome set requires methods that are incompatible with primitive selective breeding, extending as far as intervention at the genetic level. Yet even the earliest archaeological findings already reveal a fully developed diversity of wheat species. A similar pattern, the separation of cultivated species from the regions where their wild forms are found, can be observed in many other plants as well, including barley, peas, chickpeas, flax, carrots, and others. In none of the ancient myths and legends known to humanity does mankind credit itself or its ancestors with the invention of agriculture. This role is always attributed to one or another group of gods. In Mexico, corn was brought to the people by the great god Quetzalcoatl. The god Viracocha taught agriculture to the people of the Peruvian Andes. Osiris gave the knowledge of agriculture to the peoples of Ethiopia, that is, Abyssinia and ancient Egypt. The Sumerians were introduced to farming by Enki and Enlil, gods who descended from the heavens and brought them the seeds of wheat and barley. In China, people were aided in mastering agriculture by heavenly beings. And in Tibet, the lords of wisdom brought fruits and grains previously unknown on earth. According to the most ancient traditions and legends that have come down to us, the gods differed little from ordinary humans in appearance and behavior. Only their abilities and capabilities were incomparably greater than those of mankind. The earliest peoples of the planet also never considered themselves to be of purely earthly origin. They either traced their lineage back to heavenly gods, or preserved myths describing the direct relocation of their ancestors from other worlds. This idea, drawn from even earlier and more ancient sources, found its way even into the biblical account of the expulsion of the first humans from the Garden of Eden, a place set apart from the rest of the world, and their banishment to earth, where life in the form of plants and animals had already been established. If one assumes that ancient people were simply ignorant, that they feared natural phenomena such as thunder, lightning, or solar eclipses, interpreting them as the anger of the gods, there is an alternative explanation proposed within modern scientific hypotheses. Research into human circadian rhythms shows that prolonged isolation from natural light cycles can significantly alter the biological perception of time. Studies of individuals living for extended periods in caves or artificially isolated environments demonstrate that the human internal clock does not strictly require a 24-hour day. In the absence of regular solar cues, the biological day can lengthen considerably. In documented cases, human circadian cycles shift toward periods of 30 hours, 36 hours, or even longer, while remaining internally consistent and stable for the individual. This suggests that the 24-hour rhythm observed on Earth may not be an absolute biological constant, but rather an adaptation to the specific rotational period of this planet. From this perspective, it becomes possible to consider a hypothesis in which the original biological calibration of the human organism was shaped under different environmental conditions, potentially on a world with a longer day-night cycle than that of Earth. Such a hypothesis does not require invoking mythology or belief. It follows directly from observed properties of human physiology and its capacity to adapt to alternative temporal environments. Let us return to our ancestors. Ancient texts contain information that appears to have been introduced to the planet from an external source. Clay tablets discovered in the temple libraries of Nippur and Sippar indicate that as early as 5,000 years ago, people in Sumer were aware that the celestial sphere completes a full cycle every 25,920 years. This is the so-called precessional cycle of Earth's axis. At the opposite end of the globe, the same number appears in the astronomical texts of the ancient Maya. How could ancient civilizations have possessed precise knowledge of the precessional period? After all, the entire partially and fully documented history of modern humanity spans less than half of this cycle. The ancient Maya were not only familiar with the very concept of the true solar year, they also knew its precise length. They calculated it as 365.242199 days. According to the Gregorian calendar we use today, the length of the true year is 365.2425 days. And only in recent decades, with the help of extremely precise astronomical instruments, has its actual value been determined as 365.242198 days. Such a level of accuracy is simply impossible to explain through a gradual, step-by-step development of civilization on Earth. Modern science has no clear answer as to how the priests of ancient Egypt possessed such precise knowledge of the planet's magnetic poles. At the other end of the planet, ancient Indian sources estimated the age of the Earth at 4.32 billion years, a figure remarkably close to modern scientific data. Meanwhile, cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia, compiled more than 3,000 years ago, state that the radius of the Earth is 6,310.5 kilometers. Only in modern times has it been calculated that the Earth's radius is approximately 6,371 kilometers. This relatively small discrepancy was explained by 20th century scientists as the result of the gradual expansion of the Earth. In ancient times, every civilization had its own calendar system, each beginning from a specific real-world event, a flood, an earthquake, or the end of a great migration. In the ancient history of humanity, there is indeed a striking coincidence in the starting points of different chronological systems. The ancient Egyptian calendar cycle, known as the Sothic period, lasted 1,460 years. One such cycle ended in 1322 BC. If we count back 7 cycles from that year, we arrive at 11,542 BC. The ancient Assyrian calendar consisted of lunar cycles, lasting 1,805 years. The end of one such cycle falls in 712 BC. Counting back 6 cycles from that point again brings us to 11,542 BC. The ancient Indian lunisolar cycle lasted 2,850 years. The Iron Age, known as Kali Yuga, in which we are said to be living today, began in 3,102 BC. Counting back 3 cycles from that date yields 11,652 BC. Among the ancient Maya of Central America, the beginning of the calendar era is dated to 3,373 BCE, and the calendar cycle spans 2,760 years. Once again, counting back 3 cycles leads us to approximately 11,653 BC. Such a convergence of calendar systems from different civilizations, separated by oceans and deserts, cannot be explained by coincidence. It is evident that a single global scale event served as the original reference point for all 4 calendars. Less well known, yet recorded in ancient India and Mesopotamia, in Africa and ancient Greece, in Central America and Tierra del Fuego, is a myth claiming that before the Great Flood, the moon did not exist in Earth's sky. Among the Bushmen of southern Africa, for example, there is an ancient tradition stating that the moon appeared in the sky only after the flood. A similar legend exists among the indigenous peoples of Tierra del Fuego. According to it, the sea once surged up to the heavens, and from it the moon emerged. The Greek epic describing the semi-legendary happy land of Arcadia refers to its inhabitants as proselytes, people who lived before the moon, because they dwelled on Earth at a time when the moon had not yet appeared in the sky. This myth was also affirmed by Apollonius of Rhodes, a custodian of a library of Alexandria. Referring to manuscripts known to him, Apollonius stated that the moon did not always shine in Earth's sky. Moreover, during excavations in Sumer, clay tablets were discovered that describe events after the flood, when the moon appeared in the heavens. The position of planet Earth within the solar system is also associated with an unusually large number of anomalies. If the solar system were merely the result of a chaotic gravitational collapse of a gas and dust cloud, then the distribution of planets across their orbits should appear largely random. In reality, however, we observe a striking degree of order. The planetary orbits lie almost perfectly within a single plane. The distances between them follow approximate mathematical patterns, and the system as a whole appears far more like the result of fine-tuning than a blind chance. Earth stands out in particular, a planet that ended up within an extraordinarily narrow range of distances from the Sun, where liquid water, a stable climate, and complex life are possible. This range is known as the habitable zone. By cosmic standards, its width is negligible. A slight shift inward, and the oceans would boil. A little farther out, and the planet would turn into an icy wasteland. Yet Earth is not merely within this zone. It occupies a position that is almost optimal. But here a detail emerges that is mentioned far less often. The Moon is also located within this same habitable zone. From a standpoint of distance from the Sun, the Moon receives the same solar radiation, moves through the same region of space, and formally falls under the same conditions. If one were to judge solely by its position within the solar system, it too should lie within a zone favorable to life. However, reality turns out to be diametrically opposite. The Moon is a world without an atmosphere, without liquid water, with extreme temperature fluctuations and complete exposure to cosmic radiation. Two celestial bodies, located almost in the same place, display entirely different destinies. One is overflowing with life, the other is completely dead. This difference cannot be explained by distance from the Sun alone. What proves decisive is not position in space, but a specific combination of conditions that, by a very strange coincidence, came together on Earth, and did not come together on its nearest companion. Against this backdrop, the role of other elements within the system becomes especially significant. The mass of Jupiter appears to be finely balanced, allowing it to function as a gravitational shield by intercepting a large portion of comets and asteroids. A Jupiter that was too massive would destabilize the inner planets. One that was too light would fail to protect them. Earth's moon also possesses anomalous characteristics. It is unusually large relative to the size of the planet. Its orbit is remarkably stable, and its gravitational influence smooths variations in Earth's axial tilt, preventing abrupt climatic catastrophes. Without this stabilizing factor, the existence of complex life would be highly unlikely. Completing the picture is Earth's magnetic field, rare and powerful for a planet of its size. It shields the atmosphere and the biosphere from the solar wind and cosmic radiation. Mars, which lost its magnetic field, serves as a clear example of what follows when such protection disappears. Each of these factors, taken individually, might be explained as the result of chance. But when they combine into a single system, the precise distance from the Sun, the presence of a moon with unique parameters, a protected Jupiter, a stable orbit, and a powerful magnetic field, the impression emerges that this is not merely luck, but a deeper underlying pattern. And then a question arises: is Earth a fortunate exception in a chaotic universe? Or are we observing traces of a deliberate architecture, the purpose of which still eludes modern science? Thank you for watching until the end. Some questions are not meant to be answered immediately, only explored. Until next time.